Good morning guys, welcome back to the 1010 Performance YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about hybrid training. Now this is something that's been circulating the internet a lot recently with fitness races like Hyrox, the hybrid games, but also people looking to become the ultimate athlete by mixing endurance and strength. The plan of action for today is to cover a couple different fundamental areas of the topic. What is hybrid training, when and why you would use it, how you would structure a week of training, some relative recovery protocols, and a couple shout outs to some of my personal favourite pages that run hybrid training. Okay, so first of all, what is hybrid training? So hybrid training is when we combine two training disciplines which don't naturally complement one another, and it's most frequently strength versus endurance. So a strength-based goal of a heavy squat, a heavy bench, or a heavy deadlift, followed by an endurance-based goal which tends to be running, swimming, or cycling. Now, a couple of examples of times you might find a hybrid athlete would be a footballer who does recreational bodybuilding on the side. So this might look like 2 squad-based trainings followed by 3 resistance-based trainings through the week to get the best of both worlds. Or another example would be a Hyrox athlete who does training for building an aerobic engine but also building functional strength to get their best race day performance. With hybrid training, you get the best of both worlds. Strong, healthy joints and a strong, healthy heart, which is perfect for longevity. However, as mentioned earlier, they don't particularly go hand in hand and can sometimes contradict each other if done too aggressively. So if you're an athlete who's trying to attempt a world record deadlift and the sub 2 hour marathon, which has only just been achieved this past week, then hybrid training is probably not going to be for you, and you're better staying in one lane on either the pure strength side or the pure endurance side. However, if you're a rugby player who needs a high level of absolute strength and a reasonable level of endurance, then hybrid training might actually be perfect for you. Again, Hyrox and Crossfit, this is going to be your cup of tea. So depending on your goals, your routine and your availability, there's a couple of different directions you can take hybrid training when it comes to your weekly schedule. Now, I've got 2 examples here, one squashed in at the side and one in green pen that you maybe can't read from the viewing perspective. But this is a beginner's program and a double threshold program. So the beginner program is one that I've given to a client previously when they've introduced themselves into the hybrid space. This gives us a full body strength session to start with first thing in the week. Then we move on to a bike/walk session. Now, the idea of this is going from a hard session into an easy session the next day to help our body just recover a little bit better going into the rest of the week. We then have intervals, which is going to be a tough session. Rest, which again will be nice and easy, we'll be able to recover. Full body strength for the second time of the week, and then the weekend gives us some mixed modal conditioning. The double threshold session, what's going to be different is the volume that we now start to collect from the workouts. So we have a lower strength session in the morning into a threshold run. Now when we talk about threshold, we're thinking about that effort which is not quite our maximum effort, but enough that we can continue to perform for a reasonable amount of time. We generally use zone 4 heart rate as the intensity for our threshold training. Tuesday, we're back in for a bike session and a core workout. So this follows the same philosophy of going from a hard day into an easy day. Wednesday, we're back into some threshold running, followed by squads training. Now, for a lot of hybrid athletes, we need to think about squads training, especially if it's football, if it's rugby, and if they're part of any sort of running club. Thursday, we've got upper body, so again, following that tough session on Wednesday, into a slightly easier session on Thursday. Friday, we've got some speed intervals, followed by a long run, and then finishing at the weekend again with either some hard ergs or some mixed modal conditioning. So one thing we always want to think about when it comes to hybrid training is how taxed are our legs going to be going into the next session. If we've got a day of lower strength and threshold running where we're putting a lot of stress on the legs, the next day we definitely don't want to have any more running or lower body strength work. We want to think about getting a day to recover before we go into the next one. So unlike bodybuilding, we're trying to keep our RPE moderated across the week. There's going to be a lot of times where we're using the same muscle groups 2 to 3 days in a row. So if we go full send on that lower body strength session, then our running session is going to be a very low performance. Vice versa, if we do a long run at our race pace, then it's going to tax our body and our recovery is going to be a lot longer than we hope. So we want to be thinking about making sure we keep ourselves within a range where we are still moving the needle, but not quite getting the stimulation which shocks our system and puts us into a bad state of recovery. And this is why the double threshold method works. We get a hard day where we put a lot of effort into our training, but we then get an easier day followed by it, just to make sure that we have time to recover and catch up with the adaptations that we've just placed on our body. If you like the sound of this training and want to learn more, then make sure to head over to the 1010 Performance Instagram page or comment perform down below to get on one of these fully coached programs yourself. Some of my personal favourites when it comes to hybrid training is Liam Carmichael, who's representing March On down in London, and Graham Halliday, who runs the Elation Gym in Glasgow. Thank you all for watching. I hope if you take anything from this video, it's some lessons on hybrid training. It gives you a little bit of reassurance if it's something you want to step into, or at least gives you confidence that your training is moving in the right direction.